start. Okay, our computerized rover is running a Windows computer and it has remote desktop enabled. So we're going to remote desktop into our computerized rover. The computerized rover's name is Hokusai. So let's connect to Hokusai. Okay, here is our GitHub portal. So what I've done before we started recording was I went here, I downloaded the code, I unzipped the code into my Documents Developer folder, and here it all is. There are some shell scripts here. We're going to ignore those for now. I'm going to do this um, most directly in a way that should work for everyone. Okay, so here we are. I have my Cguin terminal. You can also run this with a regular Windows command line. It will work either way. You would just need to be in the same folder. So that's yeah, the instructions would be the same. And also the instructions are practically the same for a Mac if you want to load this as a virtual machine on your Mac. This software will run natively on Mac. So there are instructions here on the GitHub page that give the Mac instructions in which you can just load the software onto your Mac without needing a virtual machine. But for Windows, you can only run this via a virtual machine. So that's what we're going to do. And I'm going to use my Cguin terminal because I love Bash, and Cguin terminals are Bash. But none of the commands we're necessarily going to run are Bash. There's a copy command, which is different on Windows or Bash, but that's the only thing we're going to copy. So in the background, before we started, what I did was copy the Vagrant Windows file, and I copied it over as a Vagrant file. The root file needs to be called Vagrant. If I was on the Mac, I would have copied the Mac file over as a Vagrant file. But since we're on Windows, I took this one and I copied it over and made this Vagrant file. Okay, so now that we have that, we have VirtualBox installed, we have Vagrant installed, we have our Vagrant file in the root directory of where we are. And so let's build our virtual machine, which is going to be an Ubuntu desktop that is Ubuntu 2004 desktop that will have all of our software dependencies already preloaded. So once this completes, the only thing we'll have to do is add our API keys so that it can reach out to all of those sources, ChatGPT, Google, um, Open Weather Maps, news data. We're just going to load our API keys, and that should be it. We should be able to run the Botta-Bing software and talk to our computer, and our computer should talk back. And if you're loading this on a rover, it should be able to talk to our rover, and our rover will be able to talk back, and our rover will be able to talk to other people, and so forth and so on. So let's get going. So the simple thing we have to do now, after we've copied over the file as a Vagrant file in the root, is just run Vagrant up. So this will start the provisioning process in which it will build our virtual machine, um, and it will provision um, the necessary dependent software for Botta-Bing to run. We're going to just make sure this gets started and that we don't run into any trouble, and then I want to go back to this, which is the Vagrant file, and show you what the actual specifications are of the machine that we're going to build. So it's going to start here. It's downloading just a basic Ubuntu 2004 instance. And now it's starting the process of setting up the actual network for the box. And if we look here, we should see that it is starting, which is perfect. So while this is going, because this can take 30 minutes or so, let's go back over to this Vagrant file and see what we're actually creating. So for this software to run effectively, we have to give it a good amount of system resources. And it also needs a desktop environment, which most Vagrant instances, you don't need the desktop environment. You're just going to, SSH into the box and load some software and that's it. But this isn't the case for this particular project. We need a desktop environment. I'll show you why once we get to the end. And it makes it actually much more user friendly. So our box's specifications are going to be that it's got 64 um, megabytes of video RAM, 4 CPUs, and it's got 4 gigs of memory. So that's a lot. The audio is turned on. This particular parameter is different if you're running on a Mac. So that's why there's a second file. Also on a Mac, you can't do 4 CPUs. It's two. Two is the max. And also some of the memory has changed a bit for the Mac. But for the Vagrant Windows file, these are your specifications. And if we go down to where it's provisioning, here's all the dependent software that it's going to add. Now the important thing to note right here is this is my time zone. So it's going to set up for my time zone. Before you run this, please make sure that you go in and edit this file to your correct time zone. And then everything else it will move through and install. So we're going to check on our installer to make sure that it has started. And then we're going to pause um, and come back once it's all finished. So let's look. Yes, it is downloading and doing its thing. So, all right, let's just wait out the 30 minutes or so and I'll be back.